weight of that. I don't know how well the camera shows it up, but look at that. It feels worse than it looks, and I think it looks, I mean, just who gets a bruise there? On top of the ball joint of the thumb. Like, that is let me tell you, I've had this since Friday night, bloody hardcore match, bloody bins thrown at me, bloody going through steel chairs, bloody steel chairs going through me, bloody thumbtacks again, and God, let me tell you, that is a terrible place to have a massive, painful bruise.
She's got no answer for the brutality that Sterling is prepared to administer. Oh no! Smashed her hand between two chairs.
Ah. Don't know why I suddenly went Scottish. It's just anyway, PS5 Pro, less and more ugh. So we're going to talk about that today. The first half gets a little bit depressing, where I'm talking about economic things, but the second half is something I've actually wanted to talk about for a long time. Something that has been really cheesing my onions. So I'm going to switch on my hex bug. And, there we are. Oh, I'll tell you what. Wonder what it will feel like on my...
She's gonna finish! No!
PS5 Pro, more like PS5 No! Okay, I suppose we better talk about the PS5 Pro. I know everyone else has already filled the internet with their responses to it, but this is a weekly show. I'm not contracted to do any more, and last week I deemed it far more important to talk about what a morally squalid little cum carrot Chris Deering is. Frankly, I think I'd have even more fun this week laughing at that Days Gone director who threw a tantrum because the iconic character we all know and love as Deke was put into Astrobot, which is an objectively hilarious thing to be upset about. What isn't objectively hilarious, although one could classify it as a joke, is the PlayStation 5 Pro. Do we need a new version of the PS5? Nah. Do we want a new version of the PS5? Debatable. It's happening regardless though, because this is the game industry where things happen regardless of demand or necessity, simply because they happen. We have a Pro PlayStation every generation, so we're having one now, for the sheer vulgar sake of it. And that's really what this one feels like. It's here for the sake of it. And you like how I added the word vulgar because it creates the illusion that I might be a little bit highbrow in my sneering? It really is a sneering way to put someone down as well. When you don't use it in the context of someone making cock and poo jokes, which, you know, that's objectively funny, but when it has that other, almost intangible other meaning, the meaning that insinuates you are really looking down on someone. Vulgar. I love calling people vulgar. And crude. And it's exactly what game industry executives are. They're vulgar and crude. Oh, God, it makes me feel so superior to use those words. I fucking love being me. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'm being a bit mean to Sony. I mean, in fairness, they do need the money to pay off their debts after Concord.
You're still mad at me?
And I did hear if they don't pay Filthy Leslie his £2 million back by Thursday afternoon, he's going to slough Herman Holst's dick off. And that was the word he used too. Sloth. I can imagine several ways how that could work, and I don't like that I've thought of any of them. But basically, if you use some sort of hydrochloric... The PlayStation Pro! The economy might still be a wreck and homes may still be unaffordable, but the bright side is that Sony's new toy costs about 800 days worth of what the British government expects a disabled person to live off. Let's talk price first, because quite frankly, I don't give a shit about GPUs and shit like that when I spend most of my time playing Doom 2 and Serious Sam. Objectively, the only two video games. Also, I want to do an entire video on why I play Serious Sam for the story. Seriously. I'll show you excerpts of the Serious Sam novel I'm writing as well, not officially, but I'm going to finish it and send it to them. There's 3 chapters on one circle strafe fight alone, and a scene where Serious Sam sloughs a reptiloid's balls off by using hydro... Anyway, Sony wants to sell the PS5 Pro for $700. Fuck off, Sony. Whatever nonsense Sony wants to pull out of its arse to justify that kind of price, and while there will be people willing to spend it, that price can utterly fuck right off. It can fuck off to a special little town that I founded. It's called Fuck Off PS5 Pro Price Fuck Offsville. It's twinned with the German village of Phil Spencer's Kunzendorf. As I suggested earlier, people are really struggling and things are only getting worse. For a vast majority, not one fraction of their income could be considered disposable anymore. We're in a severely fucked up time in history where people can't afford childcare on the wages they're paid by the jobs they need childcare to go and do. The gift of the Magi and the concept of employment shouldn't be the same thing. But here we are. So, I find it kind of insulting that a bunch of executive shit sippers are all, our shareholders are gonna want some more millions of dollars soon. We should sell people something we already sold them for a ludicrous amount of money. I mean, I shouldn't take it personally. It isn't personal at all. But on a deeply personal level, I fucking hate everyone running the game industry. I felt I should clarify that because I feel like my past work's been a little bit subtle on that note. Just saying I wouldn't shed a single tear if filthy Leslie rounded up every executive and got out his Hydra. Many critics have pointed out how far we've come as a society from Sony's notorious $599 US price tag for the PlayStation 3.
$599 US.
Back then, the company was absolutely pilloried for it, and rightly so. And it does say a lot about the rate of inflation that Sony can get away with $700 for an upgrade in 2024 when it got laughed out of the room for trying to flog a $600 console in 2007. But to bring it back to my overall point here, while $600 was quote-unquote worth more in 2007, a lot more people these days would kill for $600 than they would back then. $600 might be worth less to today's economy, but it's tragically far more valuable to actual human beings. Not that executives would know what human beings are. Since the PS3's launch, we've had 2 recessions, a pandemic, a super villainous level of wealth transfer between working people and the mega wealthy, and, well, you get the point. I'm trying to make these shows less depressing lately. And it's hard because of, you know, the world. Back when the PlayStation 3's $600 price tag was criticised, then Sony boss Ken Kutaragi famously said people should just work more hours if they couldn't afford one. It got boiled down to an all-time historic meme that basically said, you want a PS3? Get a second job. Yeah. In an age where people do indeed work 2 jobs just to afford the obscenely jacked up rent inflicted upon them, that snide little comment has gotten not only harsher but more or less fantastical. Like, haha, imagine being able to afford a games console on only 2 wages. We're all absolutely fucked. Anyway, would you believe that my intent today was not to focus on the obscenely wretched financial state of the world? I was mostly gonna shit on how Sony's prior pushing of ray tracing with the PS5 bordered on being a fucking grift, and that I'm not gonna trust the PS5 Pro is worth any amount of money because I don't believe the hardware will be capable of justifying an upgrade. So yeah, actually, let's do that now. Even if $700 didn't make me want to be sick into a little bag, I still wouldn't have any desire to buy a PS5 Pro because, in all honesty, the PS5's biggest marketing point has always been an absolute fucking piss take. Right, cards on the table. The fucking ray tracing that Sony kept banging on about before launch, talking about how jaw-droppingly gorgeous games are gonna look. I'm not the only one who barely sees a fucking difference with most of these games, right? With at least half a dozen games a year since the PS5 launched, I've turned ray tracing on and off, on and off, on and off, flitting between the 2 states with multiple titles to see if I can notice an appreciable difference, and frankly, with the majority of them, I can't see a difference at all, let alone a dramatic one. And this isn't like when HD TV was brand new and I couldn't quite see the fuss. I wear glasses now, I didn't know I needed them back then, so I actually can tell the difference with things. When it comes to the PS5, I only see one main difference when I turn on a game's fancy graphical options. I see that the game starts running like fucking shit. In fact, what I see when I turn on a game's fancy graphical options is I see a game that looks worse. See, despite Sony's touting of the hardware's power, the PS5, like the PS4 before it, still isn't actually powerful enough to do what Sony says it can do. Well, not without compromising on other things. More important things. Far more important, quite frankly, than there being a few extra shadows or some prettier lights or whatever these modern consoles are supposed to do so much better. We're still in an era where many console games have to have two visual settings that players choose between: quality or performance. Some games call them different things, but it all means the same thing. Quality is all the graphical bells and whistles like ray tracing, high fidelity, all that shit. Performance is the game's frame rate, its stability, it not looking like shit. This is the choice players need to make with PS5 and Xbox XS games, and it's an absolutely shitty choice to put on them. Not least for the fact that performance mode is objectively better, it just is. A more stable game at a better frame rate is always better, and I do mean objectively, than a game that looks ever so slightly prettier but runs at half the frames, looks like Vaseline was smeared on all the edges, and honestly, with some of them, risks giving me a fucking migraine. I'm sorry, but especially when you switch from performance to quality, the difference is disgusting, like it is so glaringly noticeable. Oh, I'm sure there will be some contrarian comments saying, actually, I prefer 30 frames a second to 60, but ignore those people. They are Cylons. They intend to kill and replace you and move in with your family. They are not to be trusted, ever. No. Look at The Witcher 3 here, running on PS5 without all of the so-called quality bullshit, and now here it is running on the PS5 with the quality settings on. One is smooth and slick, one is chuddery and treacly, and you will notice I'm showing you these examples for you to look at, because you can see visually that it looks better. What do I mean by that? I mean that higher frame rates aren't just a matter of performance, they are also a matter of visual quality. I dislike that console settings have split graphical gimmicks and frame rates into the categories quality and performance respectively, because frame rates aren't just something happening under the hood, they're part of what you see as well. Here's a good example. When I played the Xbox version of Still Wakes the Deep, it made the case as clear as day. I fucking love Still Wakes the Deep. It's one of the best horror games I've ever played, but holy crap, does its quality mode run like cold cum on consoles. Like, this is bloody awful. It's shocking they made this the default setting, because the second I started playing it, I was given such a dreadful first impression. I thought the game was going to be terrible. It certainly felt terrible to play, until I turned on the real quality mode, aka the performance mode, which made it feel nicer, look nicer. It was just bloody nicer. It makes me laugh when something like this is called quality mode, because what about this looks impressive compared to a sight of it running well? An ugly frame rate is an ugly game. A game that stutters is a game that looks bad. A game that gives me a migraine is a game that's affecting my eyes. And I will not be taking questions, because I'm completely correct. And I haven't even gotten in the little dig about The Witcher 3 being a last-gen game. Unlike Still Wakes, it seems most games have performance mode switched on by default, and that's because they know they look better when they run better. And when you combine it with the fact that the so-called quality improvements are so minor that you have to really try to see the difference, the trade-off between a game running well and a game looking almost imperceptibly better is no real trade at all. So yeah, basically, I have never benefited from what Sony marketed as the PS5's biggest benefit, because whenever I've turned it on, I've been able to stand it for a few seconds before I turn it off again. And it's hard not to feel like you've been scammed when you manually disable all the promised improvements with every new game, so it doesn't run like shit and therefore look like shit. Well, I say manually turn it off, but like I mentioned earlier, most games have them off by default, so that the game looks better. All I'll say is, I had to choose between graphics and frame rate in Funko Fusion. In Funko fucking Fusion. A game that literally has the graphical detail of a Funko Pop. Like, come on, how can your hardware struggle to run a Funko Pop at full capacity? So for Sony to start promising that this time the PS5 will be amazing if I just give them another $700 is plain fucking laughable. Oh no, but this time it really will be good, right? Now there won't be a compromise between quality and performance. Sort of. Kinda. Well, with some games, since apparently even for $700, Sony won't be able to guarantee that ray tracing and an adult's frame rate will be able to coexist in the same piece of software. Like, yeah, after all this time and money, we still won't be getting 60 FPS across the board, and that's just, you know, I was gonna say that was funny, but it actually isn't. It's honestly quite pathetic. It's $700 worth of pathetic. Which is about half as pathetic as Funko Fusion is. And now I'm gonna stop talking because I am angry.
While I continue my work, I want you to know that I have always loved you. And I don't mean the commander loves Priscilla.
Oh no.
I mean Stephanie Sterling loves Oliver.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, don't. That's.
Hang on.
And yes,
That's her real name.
I'm tearing into you like I've never hated anyone more, because you don't just have something I want, darling. You have the object of my obsession. There are two things I think about at night when I close my eyes. One of them is you. The other is your title. And while I make peace with the fact I could never have one of those things, there will be no peace until I take the other. So, if you have any unresolved trauma in your life, I urge you to seek closure in the next 60 seconds so you can make room in that pretty little head for all of the shit I'm putting you through.
Oh, right, we're back. I hope you enjoyed that episode of whatever it was we were talking about. PS5 Pro, wasn't it? Yeah, well. Thank you, as always, for your support on the patreon.com and everywhere else, and coming to the wrestling shows Friday night, as painful as it was, and even though I lost, and, you know, barbed wire happened and all of that shit, it was a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming along and making what I consider one of the most unique matches in British wrestling an incredibly atmospheric one. My next wrestling appearance will be October 12th. I'm going to be in Huddersfield for Tidal Wrestling. Look up Tidal Wrestling on the socials for details there. And then I'm going to be in Manchester again for Pinfall Pro Wrestling. That is October 27th, so do check that out. Either of those dates if you want to see the Commander in action. Oh shit, wait, no, there's an even more... September 29th. Like literally this coming Sunday, I'm going to be in Liverpool with TNT Extreme Wrestling for Effie's Big Gay Brunch. I was at brunch last year and I'm here this year just because I'm so ruddy awesome. So do check out. Just cut that fucking bruise. That is, ugh. I'd show you the one on me inner thigh, but you know, content restrictions and everything, but it's way worse than, ow! Why did I put, thank God for me. Bloody hell.